We have arrived. This is Webb Parton, your host, and we welcome you to the Free Range Dogs podcast. This is a place where we stake out a shady spot and talk about all things dog. Find yourself a soft piece of grass, spin a few circles, plop down, rest your feet, and join us in this joyful conversation. Hi, this is Webb Parton with Free Range Dogs podcast, and I've got a friend with me that I'm going to enjoy talking with today. His name is John Lovell, and he has had dogs most of his life. They lost their older lab here not too long ago, and they're bringing a new lab into their home, and we're going to have sort of a conversation about what that entails. And I know that means stuff to a lot of folks because many people are in the same situation. You're bringing a new dog in, and there's things you want to do and accomplish, and there's kind of new ways to doing stuff now. So, John, tell us about your previous lab.
Okay, his name was Santo, and he was a rescue. I'm trying to think where we got him. I think we got him from, Craigslist. A chocolate lab advertised as being about 2 years old on Craigslist. And energetic, which he really was. He was still a puppy, really. And we brought him home in the crate that was provided. And they had tried everything to keep this dog in a crate. They just couldn't do it. So he didn't get much crate time because we put him in the crate and he started digging for China.
Oh, boy.
So we basically dealt with him just one-on-one. Or 1-on-2, actually. My wife, Beth, she really loved him a lot. It was hard losing him, but he wasn't scared at the end. And we had great help from the vet who helped us out. So yeah, that's it.
Well, you've got a new yellow lab coming.
We do.
And we've been talking a little bit about what that's going to mean. And your goal is to be able to take him in the wash, let him run free, let him cue back on you. In effect, the classic free-range dog lifestyle that we talk about a lot on this podcast. And so there's things that I wanted to address with you. Mm-hmm. And we had a previous podcast about rope, but we're going to go over it again.
Okay.
Just specifically because it's one thing for me to say something, but then to actually have someone give me their questions and their concerns and how to make that work. And then we're going to talk about e-collars. Mm-hmm. And they, have gotten much better over the years in terms of flexibility, rheostats, even just general use. They're just a far better tool. Kids starting out, I remember the e-collars being advertised in the back of Field and Stream and Outdoor Life. And, it looked like this Buck Rogers kind of space alien, big old box with remember the old
antenna
that collapsible that went up.
Yeah.
Okay. That always bent and broke off.
Yes.
Okay. And that's what they were then. And they've come a long way. So, first thing let's talk about is how you're going to control this guy. And you're a little bit nervous. He is a dog that's come from a rescue organization and, he's 2 years old. And I've seen a video of him. He looks like a pretty rambunctious boy. He was playing in a pond in a fountain and having one heck of a good time.
Yeah, all by himself.
Keeping himself amused. Yeah, that's a good thing to happen with a dog.
But he'll swim. That's the beauty of it. We've been limited in our ability to go over to San Diego mm-hmm. and enjoy. We have a boat over there and mm-hmm. enjoy that because Santo was originally afraid of the water. Mm-hmm. And finally, as long as he lived with us, he would run in and play in the water, but he did not like his feet to get off the sand. So that was very limiting for us. So our one criterion in adopting a dog was that he swim, and
he looked pretty comfortable within that pool.
Yeah,
yeah. And I told you about the yellow lab we have at home now.
Yes.
Similar situation. He came off of something called KSL, which is Salt Lake's equivalent of Craigslist. Uh-huh. And I was there. I was training, and he was with me. And then the next year, he came up with me. I took an RV up, and I stayed in that instead of an Airbnb for a month. And I was at a state park. And there was a jetty that went out into this Utah lake. And it went out and it went into where the mouth of this bay opens up. So there's kind of a constriction. So you go a long ways on this little ribbon jetty going out in a vehicle. And so I go out there with Drake and our wire hair scout. And there are mallard ducks everywhere, swimming in the water. And okay. And so I turned the two dogs loose, and they can't go anywhere but in the water because it's a quarter mile back, to the thing. So, where the road widens enough. So, I had some bumpers, and I was throwing bumpers in the water for him. Mm-hmm. And he'd go ahead and make a retrieve, bring it back, make a retrieve, bring it back. And I throw a bumper, and as I do it, this pair of mallards fly in, and they land about 40 yards away from in the water. Okay. He's motoring toward this bumper, and you see him the rudder just kicks in, and away he goes towards these ducks. Mm-hmm. All right. They'd let him get to about 15, 20 yards. Mm-hmm. And then they'd pick up and fly 30 yards and pitch in again. And they took him on a merry chase. It was a big, big bay. And there were people fishing on that jetty all the way around on both sides. So it became quite a spectacle.
I bet.
Yeah, because everyone's watching this dog just having a ball. It took me probably 20, 25 minutes to get him back. I could see him the whole time, but he wasn't going to give up on those mallards, and they just kept taunting him, and finally he just pushed them hard enough that they just flew away. Mm-hmm. And then he turned around and came back. That's no doubt what you're probably going to see with your guy as well, mm-hmm. that kind of drive. And so you live in southern Arizona?
Yes.
And you're going to be exercising him in the wash by your place. So
yes, we're on the tail end of the Pima wash.
So you're able to go quite a distance in that wash, and he'll be able to go on his own.
Exercise, yeah.
Right. We had talked about a rope, what kind of rope to use, what kind of leash to use, and the rescue organization that you got him through had some guidelines that they wanted you to follow.
Yes.
And they were pretty conventional. They wanted you to use a martingale.
Yes.
Okay. A pretty conventional way to handle an urban dog. And from what you described to me, that's not necessarily what you're completely wanting with him. You want a dog that has more freedom, and you want to be able to turn him loose and let him run and those sorts of things.
Oh yeah, I have with my previous two dogs that Mary Beth and I had together. I did use the e-collar, and it was fantastic. And some of the neighbors would get kind of upset because I would walk him around with no leash. I mean, there was no reason to have a leash on him. Mm-hmm. And, with both of those dogs. Mm-hmm. The Rottweiler was a little difficult because he was difficult with other dogs. So I had to keep a leash on him whenever anybody else was around.
Okay. It's unusual to see that with a lab, so you're probably going to be okay with this guy.
Yeah.
I know that there are restrictions depending on the municipality that you're in, mm-hmm. whatever state statute, county, city statute. And often they want a lead on the dog. They want a physical connection. Many times when you're actually approached by an enforcement officer and they can see that the dog is wearing an e-collar and that you are in complete control, that often suffices.
We never had any trouble with anybody. I think it was more jealousy than anything else. Mm. I saw people, their dogs pulling them along. They're pulling their dog along by the neck. And, Santa would walk with us through the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And it was never a problem with the lab. I told you, Doji, our Rottweiler, was difficult with other dogs. So I kept more of a hand on him when I wasn't out in the, in the desert. But with Santo, it was never a problem. It was just, neighbors upset that he's walking around and not causing any trouble. And I think a little bit of jealousy about that.
There is a type of lead called a Jaeger lead, German for hunter. Mm-hmm. And typically, the leash you showed me earlier, there will be a conventional leash, and on that leash will be a clip. It could be a D clip or a round clip, but it floats and it can't go over either end because one has a loop, one has the snap. And so it just floats back and forth. And when you're handling the dog, it gravity just holds it down by the dog's collar.
Mm-hmm.
A Jaeger lead might be 8 to 12 feet long. And what you can do is take that lead, drape it over your shoulder, almost like you're wearing a piece of luggage,
Mm-hmm.
and bring that circular or D-ring up and clip to it. Mm-hmm. So that the leash is attached to you and clipped to you and cinches down around your chest and your shoulder. And that means that you can just literally clip the dog on, and then your hand's free. And if the dog wants to move forward, he's just sort of tugging on the lead, right? Mm-hmm. But you're not in that battle holding the rope. And
So that sounds great. How do you spell Jaeger?
well, now you're asking me hard questions. I'm going to say Jager, but that's not right. Is it Jeager? German's a funny language to kind of track.
Could be.
Okay. You will see it if you go to Gun Dog Supplies and go on Amazon or just Dr. Google Bird Dog Supplies. And Jaeger, is it Jaeger?
Could be. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I just wondered how you spell it so I could look it up.
Right.
But so is it called the lead or is it called the leash?
It's called a lead.
Okay.
A Jaeger lead.
Got it.
Lead and leash are basically the same term, except there's a lot of history with gun dog handling gear.
Mm-hmm.
And so the names tend to be kind of specific. But the thing is, you can make your own. It's not that big an issue. And I talked with you about making your own check cords.
Exactly.
And you had, after we talked, you went on Amazon and you found a check cord. Mm-hmm. And I told you that the safest thing to do was to see if you could find mountaineering rope because it's thicker and stiffer. In lieu of that, I use halter rope that you would get through, feed store, rodeo supply, that kind of thing. All my leads, and, bear in mind when I'm working, I typically am able to put about 13 to 14 collars on dogs.
Mm-hmm.
That means I have to have color for each collar so I can track it. Otherwise, my brain the synapses don't work that quick anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can look at a dog and see a pink rope, then I know which button I need to push.
Dog.
Right. And you can see, I'm holding up now, this is a Garmin Pro 5500, and you can see how I've changed the color to blue, green, orange.
Right.
Or to orange, green, pink, as opposed to blue, black,
Fingernail
red.
polish?
No. It's actually, there were little dots I got. They use them for yard sales.
Oh, all right.
All right. So you get a whole page and you're good for the rest of your life if you need those colors.
Very
right.
creative.
Right. But that way it's visual and it's instantaneous. I can look at it and tell. You have a big advantage when you only have one dog.
Yeah.
And the other thing that is different for me is that my gear has to be used on multiple dogs all the time. So that means that I can't really customize a collar strap to a particular dog.
Right.
Which means that I typically, and I'm holding up, again, a Garmin receiver, and these are interchangeable collars. So you can put on different colors, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But you see how long it is.
Yes.
So, that's probably bigger than your Rottweiler, or just about.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. And what we can do, let's say you're working with a horse, be that a Mastiff or a horse, and you can take another collar strap and just buckle it in, and you can extend the length depending on how big you need it to be. Mm-hmm. You can use collars in different places. So it could be that with your guy, when you're walking him and you want him to kind of tuck in, if you have that collar on the front of him and you are using a light sensation, or a pulse, some sort of a physical manifestation of the collar.
Right.
That point of association where the dog feels it is germane.
Right. Because
they feel it here and they want to put their head up, You can put a collar around the dog's belly and you can stop them standing, or there's different ways you can use a collar. It's not just about putting it around the neck. And the most common mistake that a person makes in using a collar is they put it on wrong. So what will happen is that a dog's neck is conical, depending on breed, some more conical than others. But typically,
what do you mean exactly by that?
like an inverted ice cream cone. So, if you look at the physiology of the vast majority of dogs, their neck diameter is wider at the chest, where it's coming out of the chest.
Got it.
And as it goes up, it narrows down, and it goes, and the skull sits on top of that smaller, narrower cone.
Okay.
Bulldogs, there are some breeds that not so much, but even them, they have that. So when you want to place a collar on a dog, again, the most common mistake folks make is they put the collar around the dog's neck halfway down. So it's in the middle of the neck. That means that there is neck diameter that's narrower above where the collar rests. The collar slides down a ways and it sits where it's comfortable. It can't go all the way down to the shoulders because they're too wide. Mm-hmm. But by the same token, because it's narrower above it, that collar can go forward. And with a dog's physiology, it's much the same as a human. There's a trough on the side of the neck. Mm-hmm. The esophagus is here and the neck muscles are behind, mm-hmm. but there is a trough right here. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so what happens is with that collar sitting midway, and you watch them do it. You put a collar on a dog, the first thing they do is shake their head. Mm-hmm. Shake their head around, flap their ears, get that thing comfortable, doesn't feel quite right. And it slides forward because it's looser. Mm-hmm. And then it twists sideways and it goes over that trough. Mm-hmm. And so the contacts at the base of that receiver unit have to be touching skin in order for the dog to feel anything.
Right.
If you're using sensation. And if it's floating over that trough, it's either intermittent or nothing at all. Okay. And that's the common thing I'll hear from folks. I got a collar, but he didn't feel it. Never felt it. And maybe it was an inexpensive collar. It really wasn't an effective tool. Didn't have the volume, the engineering to work properly. Could have been the best collar in the world and they put it on wrong. And the dog just couldn't feel it. So that's the first thing mm-hmm. when I'm working with folks about an e-collar is put it on right.
So the e-collar should be at the very base?
No, it should be at the very top.
All right.
And you put it at the top and you snug it a bit and you bring it so that it isn't, and I'm demonstrating this on myself, mm-hmm. it's not here, mm-hmm. it's here. It literally
in the
tucks right into that trough.
In the trough, okay.
So the dog's mandible is touching it at the top, and it's kind of there, and it doesn't need to be snug, but you don't want it going this way.
Got it.
Okay. So if you kind of snug it a bit, it can't go that way. So it's sort of pinned there, and it'll float a little bit, but there's still sensation. They can still feel it. Okay. So that's where you begin.
I learned something. I've used it on 2 dogs, and I never realized that.
Yeah.
I must have done it right.
Well, and you were just using pulse.
Yes.
Okay. And so.
No, I had vibration.
Okay. Well, vibration will still work because it's floating above there and they're going to feel that. It's like a cell phone in your pocket. Mm-hmm. Okay. There's 3 ways you can use a collar. You can use it as an auditory tone that the dog hears through their ears.
Right.
As a thing that moves and vibrates and creates a sensation on the skin. And then as literally a stimulation device so that they feel it. And it's like a fuzzy, like ants crawling on you.
Right.
And I know I work with folks because there's a lot of apprehension about using a collar. It's because they just don't understand it, Yeah, they can be a little sharp at the top of the ladder, but there's no reason to use the top of the ladder.
No, I never had the dog, either one of the dogs that I've used them on freak out from it.
Yeah. Well, when I'm working with dogs, and many of the dogs that I have in sessions have never had a collar on before. And matter of fact, it works a little bit easier if they've never had a collar on before. Really? Yeah. Mm-hmm. The reason being that it's new. Pretty quickly, the dogs figure this out. Mm-hmm. And you're going to notice with your older dogs, the minute you brought that collar out, yeehaw, we're going for a walk. Mm-hmm. This is a good thing.
Yeah.
Right. So, they learn pretty quick, and they acclimate to a thing or a tool that you're using.
Right.
So with your guy, you don't know. He's 2 years old. You don't know what he's had.
No. He's a backyard dog. And I understand that it was purchased for a child of a couple, and that the child didn't take any time with the dog, and so the dog basically stayed in the backyard for 2 years.
Yeah. You still don't know what happened. You don't know.
Not really. No.
Right.
That was the story.
That was the story.
Okay.
And the only sure way is to watch the dog. So when you put a collar on that dog, he'll tell you, either it's nothing, doesn't mean anything, or you put that collar on, you'll see his affect change. Mm-hmm. He'll tell you, I remember
had one of those,
yeah. Last time this didn't go well. So, there's an introduction to be made, and I know we had talked about how do you do that? Because ideally, you're going to take this guy down into the wash, and you're going to want him to stay in relative distance to you, and you need him to check back in with you. And so there's going to be a bit of a learning curve. Mm-hmm. He's going to come into your home, probably need a couple weeks just for him to get comfortable, to figure out, who you and Mary Beth are, and is this the new spot, and is this a different place for me now? And depending, because it sounds like he liked his foster family.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we asked the foster mother to bring something with her scent on it, that the dog's familiar with.
Yeah.
So maybe he'll feel comfortable at first. And we got the big crate for him.
Yeah.
And we've denized it. We've made it in more like a den by covering it.
Yeah. He's going to grieve the loss of that family.
Yeah.
And that's a tangible thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they grieve maybe a little bit differently from us, but he will. You'll see him. He's going to look for her for a while. Mm-hmm. And you have to kind of accept that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have a problem with it. We're hoping maybe she'll babysit one.
That could work out well. Yeah.
She sent us a picture of, he's 70 pounds laying on top of her asleep in a it looks like on a couch or in a large chair.
Right.
Yeah, so she really likes him and he likes her a lot.
Right.
We know that. That's why I asked for the something with her scent on it and his, and this is something that's been used in his den. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we're doing all we can to let him know that it's okay to.
Right. And he's going to be funny for a time. He will be. Mm-hmm. He may be kind of needy. Gosh, you're all so different. You just never know. But
it's okay, whatever it is.
Yeah, it'll make complete sense when it happens.
And I want to do a pitch real quick, if you don't mind, for the rescue organization. We're getting him from Southern Arizona Lab Rescue. Solar, I think they're what they call themselves.
Where are they out of?
Tucson.
They're out of Tucson. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and they, since we paid a fee for somebody to come over, look over our house, meet us, talk to us about, previous dogs that we'd had. Mm-hmm. They were great. Mm-hmm. And after we paid a little fee, I think it was $35 for access to adopting. Mm-hmm. And then after that, we could go to their website and look at the various dogs that were available. Mm-hmm. And it had information about them. Mm-hmm. And then they'd let you contact the person that was fostering.
Right.
Great outfit.
And out of curiosity, why did you pick him?
He swam. No, I've been around dogs all my life. He had beautiful conformation.
Okay.
His legs were a little long. I was more used to the English lab. But this, he had he was alert. He was playful, all that stuff that you get with a puppy. And I know that it takes a while to train a puppy. So, you just know it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just knew it when I saw him. And he wasn't, the foster was sick. Mm-hmm. When we tried to see him, make arrangements to see him, So I left our name and our number and all that. And I guess during the time that she was sick, a lot of these other people adopted or dropped off, and he was available.
Mm-hmm.
When she finally called us and said, "I'm better,
Mm-hmm.
would you like to see him?" And we said, "Sure."
Mm-hmm.
So, it's one of those things that was meant to happen, kind of.
Right.
And there were other people that had seen him before we did, but he was a little too active for them. And, I've had dogs that were difficult in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And, with love and work, they turn out to be great dogs. So,
mm-hmm.
That's kind of how that worked out.
Right, right. And he is an American Lab.
He is.
I've seen pictures of him.
Oh, yeah.
So that is a bit different. The English shorter legged tend to be a little more malleable, maybe. Mm-hmm. Okay. The American Labs have a lot of passion, a lot of drive in them.
Mm-hmm.
So he's when you take him for a walk, he's going to be looking for stuff.
Right.
That nose is going to be working. That will moderate with time, but it will take a period of time for the three of you to make that adjustment.
Right.
Yeah.
I realize that. I can't wait till he sees his first javelina.
No, you don't. You really don't
I'll have to keep him away.
No, you don't want to do that.
Santo went after one time, and then and the javelina started coming after him, and he came barreling out of there. It was really a hoot,
Yeah.
So yeah, they can't see very well, so you need to stay away from javelina.
Yeah.
But he learned that.
Yeah. Well, some dogs don't. Some dogs go right in.
No. He learned that.
And some dogs get too close and they don't have time to get away.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
We kept an eye on him.
Yeah.
We didn't let him get that close.
Mm-hmm. Well, we had started talking about your rope, and you did buy one, and it came in, and of course it was, very narrow, thin, kind of limp.
It wasn't what it was advertised to be. It was advertised to be a rock climbing rope.
Well, they might use pretty thin ropes on some sort of climbs, but typically use 3/8 or half-inch rope, heavier, thicker. Mm-hmm. And one of the old tricks is to go ahead and set your rope up, and you'll see pictures on the podcast of a rope rigged, and the rope clamp and the metal ring and the snap that's has it set up. I'm holding one now. But it's a pretty simple process to put it together. And you just use a rope clamp to just ring it all in.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'm going to go buy Tractor Supply and get one of these pretty quick.
And you see, this is fairly stiff.
Yeah, it is.
And this is, I don't know how old this rope is, but it's trained, several thousand dogs probably. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't wrap around things because it's stiff enough. It drags straight.
Right. That's my concern about this one I ordered.
Yeah. And you got a 30-footer.
Yes.
And typically what I would use would be, I'd have a few 10-foot short ropes and then 15 and 20 feet. So maybe 10 to 15 and then a 20-footer. Okay. And I would keep a longer rope, 30 yards.
Okay.
30 feet. But that was for specific recalls. Let's say you're working with a dog in training. You're trying to get him to retrieve the hand. You want something long enough to hang on to that dog as they go away from you, get to where you've left a bird or you flipped a bumper, and then you have a connection to reel back in to get the dog to come to you.
Right.
That's when you'd use a 30-foot rope. Okay. The benefit of check cord is that you don't necessarily need to use your hands. Now, you can take it and you can bunch it up. And again, I'm illustrating that with holding the rope I've got here with me. And you can have a 3-foot lead just by bunching the rope up and holding it. Okay. But the most productive way to use the check cord is just to drop it and just let it unravel.
I was going to ask you about the one I got. It's kind of thin, as you mentioned. I was wondering about attaching something heavy to the end of it to slow things down. Like I've got a weight that's like for curls.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
But when you do that, it's going to find everything to hang up on.
Is it? Will it? Okay. So there's no way to really solve this problem with this particular rope.
I would hang on to it, because you're probably going to want to do some sort of retriever training with him and that sort of stuff. And I would use it for that.
Okay.
And just have it in your bag of tricks.
Okay. Tie a loop on the end of it to keep my hand in or my foot in.
You don't need to do that. You just hold it with your hand.
Okay.
Okay. And you don't need anything on the end because you want it to drag.
Right.
That's the benefit of a check.
I was just thinking of something maybe a little light to kind of slow him down.
But
I'm just thinking about something on the end of it to kind of slow him down. I'll look in the garage and see if there's something that won't get tangled.
Well, I don't know that you want to slow him down.
Okay.
You want him to check back to you.
Yeah.
And because he's going to have a lot of prey drive. So there's going to be stuff that's happening. He's going to be out in that wash and he's going to smell a rabbit or he's going to bump a covey of quail. And those genetics are going to kick in and yeehaw, he's gone.
So probably better off just staying with the 30-foot rope, just letting him drag that.
Yeah, a 20-foot rope would be fine. And again, you use your feet.
Yeah.
So he's by you and you see him get busy with something. You can walk towards him and just stand on the rope at, 19 feet out.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, there's strategies you can use. And there's, with modern technology, there's GPS units built into collars. Mm-hmm. So, in the old days, you
didn't want to lose them.
Well, in the old days, it was all you had was telemetry gear, and that was involved. And I have lost a few dogs too. Yeah. I've recovered them all. They didn't belong to me. They were customers' dogs, but that's a bad phone call to have to make,
it really is.
And it can be a bad 1 to 3 days, With the new modern GPS stuff, there's nowhere for them to go. I mean, if they take a flyer on you, you look at the screen on your transmitter and it says 600 yards that way.
Right.
Now they have some other modern stuff and you're going to be doing your free range dog stuff inside an urban environment.
Exactly.
Okay.
This wash is really wide and long, but, like I said, it's about 3 to 4 miles long with a lot of side trails and stuff. There's several little washes and they reach a bigger wash.
Well, the germane issue is you have cell phone reception.
Exactly.
Okay. So there are little tags you can buy that are GPS trackers.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Apple makes one now you can buy. I think they sell them at Costco.
Okay.
But, and they're relatively inexpensive. I think, bought 2 for our gear. I think it was 2 for $75, something like that. They're not terribly expensive. But what that means is that if you lose a dog, just like if you lose your Apple Watch or your iPad disappears, you can go to your phone and you can say, locate my, and boom, up comes the screen and it tells you exactly where it's at. I have the same feature on my hearing aids. If I lose a hearing aid, I can go find my hearing aid and it'll tell me where the connection was broken because the two are connected via Bluetooth. Right. So when I drop it and I walk a few feet away and that connection breaks, it will note that and you'll be able to find that exact place on your iPhone.
Wow.
Okay.
It's helpful.
Yeah, that's helpful. So if you have a dog take a flyer, you can literally look at that and you can drive to him. And that doesn't help folks out in the big wild world, but in an urban environment where you've got cell phone service and you're covered by cell towers, it's gold.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's inexpensive. A lot of GPS units are a little bit spendy where you can just buy that little medallion.
And it'll come up on your Apple phone.
Yes. Right. Or on Androids and such. They have other types of same kind of unit.
I don't intend to let him get that far away because we do have major highways on both sides of this wash, on the north, south, and the east and west.
Yeah.
So I need to keep my eye on them.
Unfortunately, what we don't intend to do and what actually happens.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
That's why I was trying to slow it down. I'm not that fast anymore.
Ideally the goal is for him to keep track of you, not for you to keep track of him.
I know.
Okay. So,
I was talking about in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the end, it was after a couple of months for the other two dogs, it was just never a problem.
Right.
In fact, Mary Beth, did she tell you the story about a Rottweiler?
No.
So I did some gold panning, out in the desert. So we were out with him the first couple of days we had him. Mm-hmm. And we let him out of the cargo area at the truck, and he hauled buggy. And Mary Beth was chasing him and couldn't catch up with him. So I said, just come on back. He'll come back to you. And she did, and he did.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't take them long.
Right.
As long as they want to stay with you.
Right.
Santo had run away from 7 homes and jumped the fence and taken off, and we got him. He never tried. We left the gate open one time, and he just stayed by the gate waiting for us to come out.
He had nowhere else he wanted to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Lots of cookies and good food.
Yeah. Yeah.
And lots of love.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sure he'll fit right in.
Yeah.
There'll be a little bit of adjustment. I'm going to bet that he's going to have a lot of just innate prey drive, because of his breeding. Mm-hmm. And you may have to moderate that a bit. And I can work with you on that.
Great.
The different bumpers. And when you work with different breeds of dogs, and this has been my experience because I tend to see everything in trainings, there are different cultures within the different dog breeds. So retrievers are trained a certain way, certain style, certain vocabulary, even different. You might handle a Chessie different than you would a Lab, or a Golden different than you would a Lab, to some degree. But there is a kind of shorthand that you use if you're training retrievers. Same thing applies when you're using and training pointing dogs. There's a certain way that they're trained, the same vocabulary, the same methodology. And, that's been done for a lot of years. So there's a genetic component to that, generational component to that. Mm-hmm. Because if you treat a Lab that hasn't been trained like a Lab that has been trained, they seem to understand it. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the pointing breeds or the herding breeds, there's a culture that's bred into them. And so it behooves you to study how that training took place and to understand even the sort of language that's used, the commands you use, the processes you use in doing your trainings are going to resonate much better with the dog that has a genetic imprint, a generational imprint on that kind of training style and methodology.
I wonder, I've ordered your book about, I've forgotten what the name of it was, about basically love between a human and a dog, and training your bird dog who's living with you.
Bond of passion.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I've been looking forward to that, to learn that, the terminology, the words that are used in different areas, with different breeds. Mm-hmm. And I assume that'll be in your book. Yes. And
we start there. But ultimately, the goal in dog handling is not to have to. Mm-hmm. The goal is to live with the dog on the level that you're thinking the same thoughts. Mm-hmm. And so when you go to think something, they know it. Right. By the same token, when you see them start to get an idea, you know it.
Right.
And it's like being with a spouse for 30 years, where you answer, you finish each other's sentences. Okay. Yeah.
Or we know the same song. So
right.
One of us will be singing or humming a song, and the other one will come in and even though Mary Beth and I have a few years difference in our ages, she'll generally know what yeah.
Right. So that's the goal. Okay. And yes, there is a process. And when I was training, I'd have dogs for 3 months. You give me a dog for 3 months, I can get them there. I get them trained out. Now, it might take another year for that owner and that dog to develop that sort of shorthand. Maybe it takes 2 years, 3 years. Maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe it's there from the instant that they meet eyes. Mm-hmm. Okay. But a dog's job is to monitor us. Mm-hmm. Okay. And when I would get a dog in for training, first thing I'd look at is their eyes. do they make eye contact?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times if a dog isn't going to cooperate, he doesn't look at you. And I'm mimicking that as turning my head, looking the other direction. In a canine culture, to look at a thing, to acknowledge a thing, is to challenge it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So if you aren't going to engage as a canine, then you don't know it's there. You don't notice it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a connection there. You know, that when I would have a dog come in, the first thing I would do is get them to focus, to look at me, to make eye contact. Because once you got a dog, every movement you make, they're looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
They're constantly, you know, when you live with a dog, that dog is sound asleep, you know, with his ear on your foot,
mm-hmm.
right? Waiting for you to think about moving.
Right.
Okay. And then he's with you. And so ideally what a dog needs, and what this kid is going to need from you and Mary Beth, is proximity.
Mm-hmm.
So for that first week or 2 or 3, when he comes into the house, he needs to be with you. He needs to be able to make that bond. And you'll see him. Initially, he's going to be kind of skittery, you know, and he's not going to understand it. And he's going to be waiting for his foster mom to come back and get him. Mm-hmm. Okay. And he's not going to understand it. And that's fine, because the thing that dogs appreciate the most is confidence. Mm-hmm. And so you're going to be confident about that. And just because he's uncertain, you're not uncertain. I mean, right. This is your guy. And you can build that relationship. And you can be even beginning your training process with using tone with a collar or vibration, because you don't just call him to you and give him a biscuit, mm-hmm. or give him love, or call him for dinner or breakfast. You tone him. So it's not so much your voice, and you can layer that. You begin by using an auditory cue. Get his attention. He looks at you. When he looks at you, then he's waiting for some explanation of what it is that you want. Mm-hmm. Use your finger. Let him know that there's something you need him to do. Mm-hmm. So you're using an auditory cue. And then you begin an auditory cue, and you wait a beat, and then you apply a pulse, mm-hmm. or a tone. Okay? So that the two aren't connected.
Right.
All right. And you do that for a while. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. And then you do them both at the same time. Mm-hmm. So, same process, coming for the same things: get food, to get a treat, to get love, to go outside in the yard. Meaning, come here, I want to interact with you. But instead of saying here and then waiting a beat and then applying the vibration, you do both at the same time. Mm-hmm. So he hears that auditory tone from your voice, but he also feels it. Okay? Day 2 or 3. And then finally, the tone and then the voice. So you overlap it. You right. sequentially introduce that. And then ultimately, it can be either one.
Exactly.
Okay? But once he starts looking for you, once he starts trying to track you, figure you out, you'll see it. You'll see he's got questions. Mm-hmm. Are we going now? He will come around. And that can happen pretty quick.
Yeah, we've always had that happen.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I wanted to show you some of the options you've got here. And I showed you it's a larger e-collar unit.
Right.
This is a professional level model.
Right.
Okay. But there's also smaller units. Mm-hmm. This is a smaller, it's a dog tree unit. It's I think they call them an IQ.
Really?
But you'll see it much smaller. It has a magnetic on and off. Pretty simple unit to use. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an IQ collar.
IQ is the brand?
No, dog trays. DOGTRA. And the model of the dog tree collar is an IQ collar.
I see.
Okay. And it uses a magnetic, and some collars turn off. These collars have a rubber switch you press. Uh-huh. For a lot of different models, they use a magnetic touch. Mm-hmm. So you got a red dot on one, a red dot on the other. You put the two together, and you see how it comes up green?
Okay. Yeah.
Now it's turned on. Okay. Now, this is a very small unit. And we had mentioned that the difficulty for me is that I'm using collars on a lot of different dogs.
Right.
But what can keep it pretty simple for you is to trim your collar to the proper length so you don't have a lot of stuff flopping.
Right.
Or get a snap. You can use a collar strap and you can set it up so that it just snaps together.
Right.
Almost like you're putting a belt on, with the rubber. So you don't have to buckle it in. You're ready to go. You just snap it on and you're ready to go. There's ways to expedite stuff. But you can see how this works. Now, this particular unit of collar has buttons to press.
Right.
Okay. Has a rheostat on top.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Rheostat meaning?
Meaning levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So you can control what's happened. And you can set it on just the auxiliary function,
which is
you can get do a tone or vibration. Okay. This is a simpler thing to use. Now, the benefit of this is that you can go up that ladder. If you're training a lot of different dogs with it, there's not one level that works for you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay. But if you only are training one dog,
right,
you know exactly what levels he's going to respond to. And so you can set that with this little wheel here. It's calibrated. It's the same sort of a thing. And it's labeled NIC, which means a momentary stimulation. C is consistent. So you press that button and it stays up to about an 8-second override. And then there's one that is not sensation at all, but just pulse, vibration. Mm-hmm. And you can feel that. I'll give you the buttons and let's go ahead. I'm going to put it on a 20. You won't really feel a 20.
Okay, so which is the top one?
Top one is NIC, and it's just boom, gone.
What? Okay.
So take and press it in your hand so that those two metal contacts go right into the palm of your hand.
Okay.
Just like that.
Both of them?
Yep.
Okay.
Now, hit NIC. Do you feel the 20? You may not. Let's go to the bottom one, and that's pulse. That's vibration. You will feel the vibration. Hold it down.
Hold it down?
Yeah, just hold it down.
Yeah.
Okay. And you don't need to be afraid of it. Just literally hold it down. Don't let go of it.
Okay.
Okay, and it'll go up to about 8 seconds.
All right.
And then the middle one is continuous. So as long as you hold it down, you feel that sensation. Now, if you hold that down, you might feel the 20. Try it and just hold it down.
And I can feel it.
Okay, it's just like ants crawling on you. Okay. And that's the level that we work with a lot of times.
Really?
Yeah. It's just that tactile sensation.
Yeah.
Now, the button above it, the NIC, is instantaneous. So if you're going to be using a higher level or you need to get the dog's attention, you touch it, and no matter how long you hold it down, it's just an instant.
You can turn it off.
You don't have to turn it off. You don't have to lift your finger off. You press it down. It's only going to go for an instant, and it'll shut itself off.
That's the top one.
The top one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I felt it.
And then it's gone.
Yeah.
And that might be all he needs. Might be enough for him of all he needs. I see so many different dogs that I need to have the ability
to have the variety.
A far range of
each dog. Yeah.
Right. And where you would use hypothetically more stimulation is when there's adrenaline. So something's in the mix. We talked about javelina.
Right.
You're on a walk. Dog smells that musk.
Oh boy, I can smell it out there.
Gets curious.
Yeah.
And then he hears that hoofing in the bushes.
Right.
He gets curious. Away he goes. All right. Never met a javelina before. Mm-hmm. Can't even really see them real well because they're in a brush line.
Right.
And ideally you want to stop in there.
Right.
But that adrenaline, that prey drive kicks in and you don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's really the benefit of a collar is that you can go up the ladder. Now with this sort of a unit, if I'm working on a level 2 and all I'm going to do is a low 2, that's the only level I need to do. I don't have to touch anything. I don't have to go find that rheostat. I don't have to break eye contact with what's happening to readjust it, to reset it again. I can go to medium, high. I can go up that ladder to get compliance. Mm-hmm. With this sort of a setup, you got to break eye contact with what you're looking at. You got to find that little rheostat. For me, I'd have to find my glasses before I could read the rheostat. Okay. And you're going to have to adjust stuff to get compliance. And you may only have a second. Yeah. So there's different strategies behind it, you know. The smaller units are easier to live with because they're not as cumbersome. Garmin makes a pretty good unit, and that might be the choice for you. I know that you had talked about wanting to have the ability to have a bark control function in the collar, and they are engineered with that now. I don't know about the new IQs, whether they have a bark component or not. You'd have to check the specs on it. But I do know that the Garmin ones do.
You suggested to me that the barking thing would probably go away to the extent that I got his attention off of whatever it was that he's barking about. The other ways, for instance, what's the first word you use? The command kind of to get his or anything will work, I assume. And then, I always use to get the dog to come. But I've got to find something to have the preliminary thing to just get his attention before I do that.
Right.
So, or
Perfect.
or whatever.
Perfect.
Deeper.
It's inflection.
Okay.
And the less you use your voice,
The better.
the more power it has.
Yeah.
So if they are waiting to hear the slightest little bit from you, because they know you don't make more sound than that, then they're much more focused on you, and they're not
That makes total sense. Yeah.
drifting around. Okay.
Right.
And I know my dogs, I can just go, you know. And you really, if they're not quite certain whether they heard it or not, you're probably doing it right, because then they really have given you their attention.
All right.
Okay.
Lower.
Right.
Okay, got it.
Right. Now.
And then I can still use when I want to come. Okay.
And when you're using a cue like that, the goal of handling a dog is communicating well.
Right.
So if a dog is doing something and you go, and they look at you, there's an expectation. They don't know. You wanted something. I don't know what it is you wanted, but I'm trying to figure it out. They're in limbo. Okay. Or you ask a dog to come to you. You go, whatever the clicking sound you're going to make. Okay. And then
use the hand signal too.
Yeah, you can use your hand. Then you include an auditory tone. So they look at you and you go, They hear that. When they hear that sound, they learn pretty quick. That means they haven't complied yet.
Oh, really?
Okay. And so it's a way of communicating that the expectation, the goal has not been met.
Yeah.
And it's a way of concluding that in a very concrete, effective manner.
Right.
Because when they do what it is you need them to do, when they come to you and you put your hand on them, you're going, and it stops.
Got it.
Then they know, okay, that's what he wanted.
All right. Got it.
Now, those are really simple strategies.
Right.
And terribly hard to use because our brains don't work that way. You've got to be very intentional when you handle a dog. And it's easier for me because I've done it for so many years that I tend to...
It's automatic with you.
Yeah. Muscle memory on some level.
Yeah.
Okay. But you can structure that in, and it will make a lot of sense once you see how clearly that communicates with the dog. Now, if you're using an auditory cue like that, that's the same thing as a tone on a collar.
Got it.
Or a vibration on a collar. And the advantage is this, that brief sound works great at 10 yards.
Really?
Doesn't do you any good at 100 yards.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And that's the benefit of a collar, is it extends your control incrementally. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you're able to extend that process. When you use just an auditory cue or you use just a rope, you got about 20 feet. You can kind of shame a dog into complying, at 20 feet.
Yeah.
But again, in their culture, to look at a thing, to acknowledge a thing is challenge it. And so if a dog doesn't want to do what he thinks you want him to do, then he's going to turn his back to you and he's not going to see you anymore. Now, he still hears you. Mm-hmm. But in his culture, sound doesn't matter. It's eye contact. Mm-hmm. And if he's not looking at you, then he, in effect, is not
dissing you. He's dissing you.
That's it. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Got it.
All right.
Yeah.
So he's dragging a 30-foot check cord,
right?
20-foot check cord. You step on the rope. I mean, there's structure you can include until you're certain he's going to pay attention. But it will be a bit of a process, but it will sort itself out.
Okay. So, and then the check cord with this thing I ordered that's too light, will I still be able to step on that and stop him? Yeah,
it won't find your foot quite as well.
Yeah.
Hit hard or press it in the sand.
Yeah, okay, got it. It's the right color. It's orange. I'll see.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
You are probably going to want a thicker rope.
Yeah.
But
I'll get
use that.
I'll use it to start with.
Yeah. And I'll show you some different stuff.
Okay. And I kind of didn't quite understand. I thought I did at first, and I started thinking about it while you were talking. The idea of the sound and then the tone. Okay, so and then bringing those two together so it can be either one. When you were talking about the tone from your voice, the and then the toning with the E collar, and then ultimately moving that in to each one will work. How did you suggest doing that in the beginning with the two things, bringing them together?
I would use my voice first, just because it's more immediate and it's more directed at you. And let's say that you go to Costco and you buy a bundle of hot dogs.
Okay.
Cut them into little pieces.
Okay.
Carrots.
Lengthwise or width?
Well, he would appreciate the lengthwise, but they don't go near as far that way. Okay. So you cut them into little round circles. And so maybe you're going to give him 20 of those in a day. And you're going to spread them out, maybe, every 15 minutes, every half an hour, however it works, however it breaks down. Random, so he's not anticipating stuff.
Not every day.
And at different places,
Okay, got it.
Okay. So it's not about a specific spot where this happens, but when he hears, and so maybe, because it doesn't mean anything right away, but if you're right beside him and you go, he looks at you, you give him the hot dog.
Got it.
Do that 3 times.
Yeah.
You're in another room, you go, he's coming looking for that hot dog.
That's a good idea. Okay. You use hot dogs, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, that works pretty well. And then once you've got him queuing on that, then you're ready, because you give him the focal cue, and he's already coming for you. He doesn't need to hear anything more.
Right.
But just by coincidence, he's also getting a tone.
Got it.
Okay.
That brings the two things together.
Right.
You get 2 for the price of one part of a hot dog.
There you go. You go.
Okay, great.
And then you're going to ultimately voice, tone, then voice and tone together, then tone and voice.
Got it.
And then random tone sometimes, voice sometimes.
Got it.
Okay. But you see how effective that communication is to the dog?
Sure.
Because otherwise it can be very confusing. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I may have to call you and say, remind me about that. But I didn't quite get it when you said it the first time. Now I understand it.
Yeah.
The hot dog thing, that's a great example.
Right.
Yeah.
And once you physically do that, again, it's muscle memory, but it'll make sense. And same thing with using your voice or using eye contact. It's something that it's an intentionality that you learn. It's a learned process. It's not something we instinctually know to do. You have to physically manifest that.
Exactly. Yeah, I got it.
Right. Well, we've thrown a lot at you, and there's going to be a lot more
I think I got it, but for now, but I'm going to probably need a refresher.
Well, that's easy to do.
Yeah.
And we've been talking for a while. We've probably given you a lot of information. And for our listeners out there, same thing. You've heard a lot. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up now just because we're kind of running along. But think about in terms of how you can communicate effectively with your dog. And cut it into little pieces, just like little pieces of hot dog.
Okay.
And break that down. They like hot dogs. And so you find things that they enjoy, and then you implement that into your training, and with the ultimate goal of their enjoyment being just proximity to you. Mm-hmm. Their need just to understand you, to be with you, to be able to read your mind, to be bonded and part of a family, of a pack. And again, the goal of dog handling is not to have to.
Right.
Okay. Not your job to keep track of a dog.
It's his job is to keep track of me.
Right.
And I've got one final question of you. So when Scout shows up on Saturday morning, should I leave a cookie in his crate? Now it's his den because it's all covered up to make him feel nice and safe in there.
Well, she's bringing you a blanket.
Yep.
I would put right in the middle of there.
Before the cookie.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, you can put both at the same time. Okay. But scent's real important to a dog, and he'll know that, oh, this is my place. This is my thing. Yeah. Leave the door open so he can come and go. He probably likes food. Some dogs.
Yeah, he's definitely food motivated.
Okay, all right. Then you're going to feed him inside that for a while. Okay?
Good thing we're using kibble.
Right. And what you can do is maybe he doesn't want to go in the crate, but you said he's already crate trained. He likes a crate. Yeah. Okay. Well, it might not be an issue. With some dogs, you put it by the door and they eat there. And then you put it inside the door and they eat there. And then you put it a third of the way back in the crate and they have to go in and they eat there.
Baby steps.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
Like cutting a hot dog into little tiny pieces.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Okay.
Santo always liked blueberries.
Oh,
He's a vegetarian, I think, this dog. I mean, we did give him, dog food, but he liked blueberries and cookies, of course, mm-hmm. and broccoli.
Okay.
And like bell pepper and stuff like that.
Well, our Scout loves blueberries. And I put blueberries in microwave oatmeal in the morning, and there ain't no making oatmeal without her getting her blueberry cut.
Yeah.
I mean, it's extortion at a master level because she is right there. Her foot's on my foot. She's looking up at me. The bag of frozen blueberries comes out of the freezer, and she's like, "Where's my cut?"
Yeah.
Okay. So I know your Scout, the new dog you have coming. We have a Scout at home, which is a German Wirehair female. And she is a real blueberry aficionado.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that, we're going to sign off. If you do enjoy these podcasts, please do subscribe. We need to get all the interest we can out there in the web world. We enjoy doing these. We want to reach as many folks as we can, and it's always a pleasure to talk about dogs and to share information and to know that people are out there with their dogs having fun. With that, we're going to sign off.
Could I thank you first?
Yes, you can.
It's been really great. It's been great knowing you for many years and all the help you've given me with my other dogs.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah. You're a gentleman.
I try to be. my dogs think so.
Your dogs love you.
All right, folks. You have a great evening, and we'll be talking with you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you like this episode, I invite you to visit our website, freerangedogs.com. It's where you can find the stuff you need to live the free-range dog lifestyle. I want to help you with that. Book a consultation call or an in-person training, attend one of our ongoing events, or join our online membership program. We got it all on freerangedogs.com. All right. It's time to head back to the truck and the water bucket for the thirsty dogs. This is Webb Parton signing off, wishing you the boundless joy that comes when you share the outdoors with your best friend.